What's up, guys, and welcome back to the No Ball Knowledge Podcast, where interesting topics of conversation and debate will show that we know ball a little bit more than the average fan, but the hot takes that come with it will actually reveal that we have no ball knowledge. The first match of the FIFA World Cup has officially been played for every single group, and the tournament kicked off, of course, with the host playing. And I think really it was the Americans that actually put on a show. Yeah, the quick thoughts on kind of how the USA played there, and how they opened up the World Cup for everybody around the world.
Yeah, they exceeded expectations. They played one could argue they have been the best team, that they have been the best team so far, just when it comes to the amount of goals they played, to the opposition, which is a pretty decent team. And just how they played, they looked really well. They took advantage of the home soil advantage and really good, like really exciting. I think this is something that we needed here, us Americans, to feel like to get behind this team. So just pretty much excited to see what they could do in this tournament. Maybe this is the one where they could make it like a quarterfinal run, like hopefully.
Yeah, hopefully. But of course, the very first team that we wanted to actually take a look at, which were one of the favorites, were Brazil, where they drew to Morocco. And I'll be honest, yeah, but Brazil did not look good at all. I don't think we saw what the Ancelotti kind of difference, was. There was no real kind of tactical difference, whether in formation or the way they set up or played. And we kind of talked about that. We mentioned that in our preview that Ancelotti wasn't really going to be the kind of manager that was going to create any kind of significant difference in Brazil. We kind of talked about how Ancelotti is more so the kind of manager that you want, and you can see his real kind of impact across a 60 game season, not across an 8 game tournament. And I mean the fact that I think Morocco actually looked better than them despite the draw. I think says a lot about what Brazil's aspirations and ambitions can realistically be in this World Cup.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I think Morocco looked the better side. They looked the more organized side. It
Mm,
felt pretty much like Morocco was a team and Brazil was just a bunch of individuals trying to each win their game. And it's actually funny because on both like goals, like in the game, like summarize that. I feel like the Morocco goal was a perfect ball through, a perfect combination of two really good players. Like a great finish. And then the Brazil goal was a goal that came out of nothing, and it was just like a brilliant like moment by Vinicius. And
yeah,
it feels like that's what they're both gonna go for in this World Cup. I think when it comes to Brazil, I mean, like you said, it was like we didn't see like the Ancelotti advantage. I actually think he kind of hurt him in a way because in the first half we saw Paquetá more on the right and Rafinha in the middle, pretty much something that I feel like nobody kind of understood.
yeah.
So yeah, I mean, same old Brazil, and I think the worst part that I've noticed, like at least in this game, is that Morocco didn't respect them, and I feel like a lot of teams like going forward is something that's probably that Brazil's gonna suffer, where a lot of teams are not gonna respect them. But they still have time to turn it around. But I honestly wouldn't back on them pretty much turning it around.
No, I don't. I don't. I was thinking about something, and just a very minor comment, not something to focus on a little bit too much. But we saw that Rafinha really got the best out of his particular talent, kind of playing as an inverted winger. So it was kind of interesting that he went with Igor Thiago, this like all and out striker, and I kind of wonder, if of a Mateus Cunha or even a Joao Pedro would actually be a better fit with them almost playing as like a false nine because not only does it give him that extra guy in the midfield, but then I think it allows Vinicius and Rafinha to actually operate in the more central areas of the pitch where they provide a little bit more of a goal threat. You know what I mean? So it's interesting to me that he hasn't really tried to do something like that, especially with the seasons that those two players had, and he tried to go up with Igor Thiago, who did not look good at all. But I just, is Ancelotti going to be the guy to make that kind of tactical change and adjustment, by game week 2? I don't think so. Uh, but a team that did, really look really well, and a team that, I think had a statement win was Germany. Doing a little throwback to 2014, where they won 7-1. I think they beat, was it Curacao, if I'm not mistaken? Yes, they beat
Yes,
Curacao
correct.
7-1.
Yeah.
And I think the biggest surprise was the fact that they actually conceded one. But it's kind of funny, yeah, because when you look at this World Cup and the amount of different teams that were in here that, let's be real, have no business being here, I think we were all expecting a lot more of these score lines, and yet we didn't see that. The only real big score line that should have actually reflected the golf and quality that exists between some of the teams in this World Cup was with Germany, and it didn't really have any of the big stars that some of the other nations have. So it's kind of funny that we mentioned that in our preview, and yet we saw a perfect example of that in this particular game, didn't we?
Yeah, I think we did see a German team that was like we said in our and like in the preview, Everybody knew their role, and I actually liked it. Like I know a lot of people are gonna talk about like the opponent, which is like fair, but we also saw a lot of great nations not even like beat those opponents. So
Yep.
you have to take care of what's in front of you. And yeah, at least like something that I really liked was how hungry they were. They didn't stop. They said, "We're gonna come here. Like we're supposed to beat you by 6, 7 goals, and we're gonna do that." So I know everybody's gonna talk about, "Oh yes, Curacao, this and that." Look at all the other great nations, even better than Germany, that couldn't even win their game. So
Yeah,
does this
and
mean Germany's
and
gonna win the World Cup? No, but it means that they're actually on form and they're doing what they're supposed to. So fair play to them.
that's exactly right. They're doing what they're supposed to, right? And not only that, but you mentioned something that I'm so glad you mentioned was the fact that they're the ones that actually went ahead and won by 6, 7 goals. Because it's very fair to say, oh well, you're playing, let's be real, shit opposition. But then there's playing against shit opposition and beating them 1-0 or beating them 2-1 and it being a fluke win. And then there's a thrashing, which is what you're supposed to do, right? So they did what they were supposed to do. You play against an opponent that's not at your level, you embarrass them. And that becomes the standard. So I'll take that, and I think that actually looks better than a last minute winner against a nation that realistically speaking you should have beaten comfortably. I think that says a lot more about Germany than about some other teams. And the same counter argument that people can make about that, we look at Spain as a perfect example. Went ahead and played against it was the Cape Verde, if I'm not mistaken. Yes. Sorry guys.
Yeah,
It's all these different World Cup nations. I've never even heard of them in my life. It's hard for me to keep up with.
yeah. This is like first
And
time hearing like at least 15% of this teams. Honestly,
and they drew 0-0. And are you surprised? I mean, yeah,
not at all. Same
I
old
want you
Spain.
to, yeah, take it away there,
I,
man, because
I mean, we talked about this in our video. It's so predictable at this point. It's same old Spain, where a team comes and they sit back because, like, let's be fair, Cape Verde sat back and defended, which is what you expect them. You don't expect
hmm
them to go out there and try to be like heroes and concede 10 goals. But and guys, if we're being honest, they played for 90 minutes. Spain had one clear chance, which was the one that Ferran Torres hit like against the crossbar. That's
yeah,
it. It wasn't a thing because everybody talks about. I know like everybody's making a big deal about the goalkeeper. His performance wasn't all that. I mean, I don't remember that guy
no,
making a save. The only important chance that Spain had, he didn't even stop it because like the crossbar like stopped it. So, oh my, oh my, Spain. Since 2010, they've only won 3 games in the World Cup. 3 games, and let's not act like they're playing Argentina, France, and Germany every game. It gets to the point where if you're any other team, you say, why would I even take a chance playing these people man to man?
no,
Why would I go out there and try to fight them for the ball? If they can't score on me, I'm just gonna sit back here. I'm gonna get you in the counter with your super slow center backs and let's see. They can't score. And then another thing that I want to talk about, I'm pretty sure they were not counting on Lamine Jamal playing this game because everybody was expecting them to do to this team what pretty much Germany did. I'm to
yep,
Curacao, and the kid comes on, looks decent, but he looks hella injured. He doesn't look fit at all. So now you're moving into this tournaments with that. I mean, there's no pressure when it comes to coming out of the group because with this new format, it's pretty much a joke.
yeah,
But you do have the pressure of maybe facing Argentina. So now this kid has to play. What tells you he doesn't get injured? I mean, they need to have more tactical awareness. They need to be able to change games because it's so boring. I feel like it's a movie that I'm playing again and again. This was just how they lost to like Russia in 2018. Just how they lost to Morocco. And now 4 years again, later, it's the same movie. So
hmm
I don't really pretty much know what to say when it comes to that.
and it's crazy because like we literally predicted this. This is literally what we talked about. And I don't care whether you say, well, Nico Williams wasn't starting or Lamine Yamal was starting. Whether you and I could have been starting on the wings for Spain, they should have still beat them 4-0. That's the reality, right? And the thing is that, even Mikel Oyarzabal, who plays as a false nine, that guy didn't have a touch for like the first 20, 25 minutes of the game, which just goes to show that in the center area of the pitch, they couldn't even find a way through. And on top of that, they weren't really creating any overloads in the wide areas to try to exploit that. It was the very typical side to side, very conservative, overload the central of the areas, not have overlapping fullbacks, predictable. And it's just like, the fact that they don't do something like, okay, we need to find a different way to score a goal. You know what? Let's put Miko Marino up as a number 9, someone who can, so that way when we can whip up crosses, we have somebody that can head it and put it away. Give the defenders and the center backs and the goalkeeper something to think about. Give them the let's try to find a different way to get the goal. They don't do it. They don't do it. And then you have Rodri coming on at half after the game and saying, well, they couldn't get to the midfield, so those are the positives we can take. They couldn't get to the midfield. You're over here flexing possession against Cape Verde. Seriously. And like, it's just like, come on. And we talked about this. Their inability to adapt and find a different way to win the game against these small teams. They still haven't learned their lesson. They still have not learned their lesson. And it's like you said, having to over rely on Lamine Yamal. But let's be real. Lamine Yamal, phenomenal player. But he's not Messi. Lamine Yamal is not a 20 goal, 25 goal a season player. He's a difference maker. He does something special. But Lamine Yamal alone is not going to be the guy to win you a World Cup. He just isn't. Especially where you actually want him to make the difference is on the wing. In that particular area, you want him wide. You want him taking on the fullback. He's not a number 10 in the central area of the pitch that's going to be impacting the game as a whole. He is asked to basically take control of one side of the pitch. But if you have the other 67, 70% of the pitch where you can't do anything against a low block, I mean, that's a lot of pressure to be putting on a player, a young one and an injured one at that. So it's just ridiculous from Spain, really. But I think now it is time to move on, and I think France was a team that obviously a good win against Senegal, but I don't think that scoreline tells the full story there of what we saw from France, especially in that first half. We saw, they went with a front four that I myself wasn't really expected. They had Dembele in the 10, Doué on the left, Olise on the right, and Mbappe up top. And they created a lot of areas of they got into very good areas and created a lot of danger. But in that first half, they couldn't find that final pass. When they shot it, they should have passed it. When they passed it, they should have shot it. And it could have been anybody's game in that first half. But ultimately, at the end, their attacking talent was just too much, and they ended up putting it away. But early signs there regarding the lack of balance and the lack of chemistry that we talked about there, Yali, or 3-1 win, nothing to worry about so far.
Yeah, that first half was pretty bad. Let's be honest. That first half was pretty bad, and Senegal, like right before halftime, they missed. I mean, a clear chance. And then in the second half, like you said, like the difference in quality like showed. But I also think like Senegal pretty much got tired. They gave the ball too much, and then like Michael Lloris take over. Like he took over,
Mm,
and if you let those like if you sit back against a player like that, he's gonna find you. Like he is that type of player who could just sort of like find you like with that final pass. The problem with them is the lack of balance. I don't like the balance that they have. I don't like how they have four guys up there struggled. Let's be honest. Their touches look bad. Like you said, a lot of them will pass when they should have shot and shot when they should have passed. And if we're looking at the goals, I mean, I'm trying to like remember them right now. The Mbappe first goal, fair play. It was a great pass by Olise. I'm good finish. And then like the second goal comes when just like Senegal pretty much, brother. Like if Adrian Rabiot is giving you those passes like Kevin De Bruyne, I mean, maybe you shouldn't have been like at the World Cup. Let's be honest.
yeah.
Maybe you should have stayed back home because let's get it together. So I think that's a problem with them. I think they're gonna trash teams that are not to the level of them, teams that do not like pressure them. But I think they're just gonna. I still believe they're gonna struggle a lot once they come up with like a very organized technical team that could pretty much
Yeah.
take the ball away from them. I could make them suffer because I'm sorry, but nobody in today's game wins with four attackers. It just doesn't make sense.
No.
And then if you tell me, look, in the middle I have Casemiro and Kante in the double pivot, sure, but I mean you have two
You
guys
don't
that are
have that
not that
either.
good either. So yeah, I'm not
It
too
was
like too
also
crazy with that one.
interesting that it took him shifting Olise to the 10 to basically, unlock the attacking play, which just goes to show that Didier
Yes,
Deschamps still doesn't really know what his best team is right now. I think he has too many headaches and too many things to think about. And, luckily it's a group stage that, they should take care of very easily, but, they're not going to have a lot of time to figure it out. So they need to figure it out quick before they play a proper nation, because in that first 45 minutes against a proper team, they could have found themselves 2-0 down easily. Easily. But
yeah,
I think one thing I will say about France, to give them credit, I think that they're the kind of team that if the game stays tight as the game goes on, like the amount of like attacking power that they have up front, could bail them out. So that is something that we'll give them. But I think that concludes part one of our wrap up. We're gonna do the Netherlands, Argentina, Portugal, and England in part two. So keep an eye out for that. But that concludes part one. Thank you guys for watching. Let us know what your thoughts were about Brazil, Germany, Spain, and France. What you made of them. Let us know your good, bad, and the ugly. If you like that segment, if you didn't see that, go and check it out. We have a nice little playlist for you where we talk about all of these favorites, what we like, what we don't like, what we're worried about, to get a better understanding of how we look at these teams and how so far we're being proven right. So keep an eye out for that, and part two is coming up shortly. Thanks.